You're listening to Brown on Brand, featuring Matthew Brown on thumbstopper.fm.
Good morning. This is Matthew Brown, and welcome back to Brown on Brand. Today I have an exciting guest, Susan Bass from Big Cat Rescue, and we're going to be talking about something that always touches me. For those of you who may not know, myself and my family are huge animal lovers. And good morning, Susan.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for coming down today. Today we're going to be talking about Big Cat Rescue, and that's a beautiful property in Citrus Park, part of Tampa, Florida. And although I've walked behind it on the trail many times with my little dogs, I've often wondered with the wire across the top of the wall, I always wondered what was back there. And I had just recently learned about it, believe it or not, and I'd heard the name Big Cat Rescue, but I didn't realize it was right in my backyard. So
yes, it's a hidden gem. If I had $1 for every time someone tells me I've heard of it, but I've never been there, I'd be quite wealthy.
Yeah, no doubt. And it is a hidden gem. And so, what's the story at the foundation? How did you, in Big Cat Rescue, we'll have information, in the podcast about it, but, these are big cats. It's just what it says, right? So how did you end up around big cats?
Well, the sanctuary started in 1992, and right now we have about 60 big cats. Okay. And even though we call ourselves Big Cat Rescue, some of them are quite small. Bobcats are maybe, 12 to 40 pounds. We have an ocelot named Perfection, and she's just tiny. So there are some big cats. And
tiny, like house cat tiny? Or?
Right, house cat tiny.
Okay.
And we have a couple hybrids who are small, and then it goes all the way up to the lions and the tigers. And our biggest tiger right now probably weighs about 400 or 500 pounds.
Holy cow. And so how big is the property? 60 cats, that's a ton of, I guess some are tiny and they're not all big, but that's a ton of cats.
Right. The property is 69 acres.
Okay.
It started off in the 90s at 45 acres. And what was nice when the economy had a downturn in the, 2008
sure.
to 2010, we were able to buy some adjoining properties. So now it's about 69 acres. And we have several staff people who live on the property, as well as an intern program. Interns apply from all over the world to come and live on site. They get free housing and stipends for food, and they work around the cats for 3 months to learn a lot about big cats.
Oh, that's awesome. And I noticed the areas around that. I'm quite fond of Tampa for several reasons, but one of the things I love about Tampa is that you have little pockets of rural feelings in the city, and I live in one of those little pockets between Town and Country and Oldsmar. But I always like walking through the trail, so I can imagine some of that property that you picked up. Were those homes or was that raw land out there? Because I know there's kind of both still.
Right. It was raw land, and there's actually a couple lakes.
Yeah.
We have a perimeter fence around the 69 acres, so you can't really look in and see it. People always ask me if we have alligators in the lake, so we don't because they can't come in and out, right? It's contained.
It's contained, yeah.
But our founder originally, like I said, she had the 45 acres, and she wanted to greenbelt it, basically get some llamas for free lawnmowers, as I always call them.
Okay.
So she went to an animal auction, this was in 1992, to get some llamas. While she was waiting for the llamas to come up to be auctioned off, there was a young bobcat being auctioned off. And so she was thought that was very odd. Who would be, the bobcat was clinging to the man on the stage. Yeah. It was very afraid. And someone in the audience next to her was actually bidding on the bobcat. So finally she said to him, why are you bidding on a bobcat? Aren't they mean? They're wild animals. And he said, I'm a taxidermist.
Oh, man.
So his plan was to take the bobcat out in the parking lot, club it to death, and make it a den decoration.
Yeah.
Carol burst into tears, refused to allow that to happen, and made sure that she was the highest bidder. So that's how the sanctuary actually started.
Wow, what a great story.
She had no intention of, starting a sanctuary for cats.
Sure.
She always loved cats and named that little bobcat Windsong, and Windsong was the start of the whole sanctuary.
That's an amazing story and quite touching, actually. And I always think the best things, especially the things that turn into philanthropy, they start like that, where somebody really, gets touched by something in their life, and so that's amazing. I don't think animals have enough, heroes, if you will.
That's right. She's a amazing hero for animals. One of the fiercest women I've ever seen.
It's awesome. And when did you get involved? What year?
I got involved with the sanctuary way back in 2003. I was running the public relations department for an ad agency, public relations agency combo here in Tampa. And at the time, the sanctuary was called Wildlife on Easy Street, and it was losing money, and nobody in Tampa had even heard of it. Now, at least everyone's heard of it, even if they haven't been there. And Carol had started dating her now husband, Howard Baskin, and he has the financial law degree, Howard MBA kind of background, and he was like, we need to look at the sanctuary as a business, not just as a nonprofit that's draining money. So he had met the owner of the advertising PR firm that I worked for and said, would you guys take us on as a pro bono client? We need to change the name. We need some help with our logo. They had an annual event every year called the Fur Ball that they needed some public relations support for. Yeah, the Fur Ball's not great. So that's actually how I met.
They needed marketing help.
Yes, they needed big marketing help. So the advertising agency side of it changed the logo, still the logo we use today. And Howard and Carol and I and a couple other people, put our brains together and came up with Big Cat Rescue as the name, because obviously that is much better at describing what we do at the sanctuary.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that's interesting. And, talking about marketing, there are negative things, that you always hear. And when there are people doing good, there are always people that are, for some reason, pissed off about that, whether it's financial gain that you could have, by, working against something that's positive. But there's been a number of things. And one of the things that we were talking about in pre-podcast and just, chatting before we got on the air here is that there were questions out there I couldn't believe people asked, and that you guys are transparent with those questions. And I was a little bit confused when Amy had handed me the list about some of those things, but I'd love to delve into them because, I want to get to a bill that you guys are working on, and I think that's very interesting. That's really what's been most intriguing me to learn about that. But, you hear things like, why are the cages so small? And you hear questions about, is there enough property, for each cat? What do you say to things like when you hear that? And being somebody that's never been to that, I know we're going to go visit and we're going to try to get some pictures so as we can add to the video so people can get a sense for it. But for an organization that's founded on the right roots and doing so many good things for animals, what is it that drives people crazy to ask questions like that, or what creates that empathy if it's real?
Right. No, that's good. That's a very good question. We want to have cats be in the wild, period. They should not be living in captivity, not even at Big Cat Rescue. We have huge enclosures. They're 10, 20, 30 times the minimum standards that the Florida Wildlife Commission requires. But there's still not the hundreds of miles that they might be roaming in the wild. Lions, tigers, leopards, they're not even native to the United States.
But it beats the hell out of being clubbed in a parking lot and made in a den.
That's true.
Yeah.
But those cats aren't even native to Florida. They're only here because people want to make money off of them. And we're trying to end that. So the people who are making money off them, and it's very lucrative when tiger cubs are very young, between 4 and say 12, 13 weeks old, they can, the breeders and exhibitors charge a lot of money for little Johnny to hold a tiger cub on his lap, take a photo, and maybe, give the little cub a bottle.
Yeah.
But what people don't realize is once they are 12, 13 weeks old, they're way too dangerous to sit on someone's lap. They can actually scratch or, even bite a finger off at that point. So then they're discarded. They're no longer wanted. So they're bred for a teeny tiny little window of opportunity for the breeder. And in captivity, they can live well into their 20s. So think about, languishing. What happens to those cats once they're too large to be used for cub petting?
Right.
Nobody knows.
Yeah.
Nobody keeps track in the United States. No one knows how many big cats are living in people's backyards right now.
Right.
In a state like Florida where we have hurricanes, you don't know after a hurricane, it's the first responders are trying to figure out, how to help the people. There's maybe a lion loose or a cougar loose in your neighborhood.
Right.
And they have to deal with that, and it could attack someone. So that's kind of a long way of saying the reason a lot of people make up lies or tell untruths about us. Yes, they're making a lot of money on that, and they don't want that to stop.
Sure.
So they make up a lot of lies. For example, if someone, says, "Why are your cages small?" They've probably seen on a website a photo of one of our cats inside what we call their food lockout.
Sure.
They have a smaller section that has a guillotine door that can go down for safety,
Okay.
so that when our volunteers, our keepers, are placing the food inside the food lockout, they can close the cat out. Then when the food is safely placed in there, they open the guillotine door and the cat comes in to eat.
Okay.
So if they show that and say that's the entire area that the cat has to live in, where actually our enclosures are between 1,200 square feet, the size of a small home
Sure.
for a bobcat, goes up to 2 acres for one of our tigers.
Okay.
So they're huge. Right now, the Florida Wildlife Commission, which has pretty generous rules compared to other states, says that you can keep 2 tigers for their entire lives in a 12 by 24 foot cage.
Wow.
That's about the size of a large parking space.
Yeah.
2 cats, no enrichment, no exercise ability.
And the the auspice behind that is so the people can own them privately. Can I own a tiger?
You can own a tiger. Right now, there's a loophole in the federal regulations that says you're technically not allowed to own a tiger or a lion or a leopard or jaguar as a pet.
Okay.
But if you say, I'm a small roadside zoo, I'm
Yeah.
exhibiting this cat,
Right.
you can purchase a USDA exhibitor license for $40 and get around the law.
Yeah, it's brutal. And wasn't it last week? I just saw they had to euthanize a bear because the natives were feeding the bear and taking selfies with the bear. The bear came back to love on these people like it had been doing, and they euthanized the bear. So, I mean, I don't know why anybody, and we love animals, but I don't know why anybody would want the responsibility. We always think we'd like to have a bird, but the problem is the bird's going to live 100 years, and it's like having almost a handicapped child. It's like when you're gone, who's going to take care of, and so again, back to not enough heroes. And I didn't mean to get off on such a, negative piece, because I think there's a lot of things to talk about. But speaking about legal, I think you guys are working on a bill, HR 1380. Is
Yes.
that right? Is that what I read?
It is, and it's a federal bill, so it's not a bill just for Florida.
Okay.
It's going to cover all 50 states. It's called the Big Cat Public Safety Act,
Okay.
and it's working its way through Congress right now. The HR is the House side of the bill,
Right.
1380, and we're close to having it reintroduced on the Senate side. But as we get more and more co-sponsors, eventually it will come up for a vote on the House floor. And the last time something similar came up to vote, it actually passed unanimously.
Oh, wow.
So we're very much believing that this Congress, and a bill has 2 years, as a 2-year Congress, for the bill to pass. If it doesn't pass, it's reintroduced and has a new bill number. So that's the current bill, is 1380. And what it will do is basically 2 things. It will ban private owners from owning these cats as pets. So if you are a zoo
Anywhere
or
in the
a
US.
sanctuary, right, anywhere in the U.S., you'll be grandfathered in. You'll be allowed to keep your cat until it passes on, or you can relinquish it, and a sanctuary like Big Cat Rescue will take it on. And there's a series of other accredited sanctuaries like ourselves around the country that are standing ready to take these cats in. And it would also ban the cub petting. I was mentioning earlier about people will pay, $20,
Right.
$50 a pop.
I've seen it,
for
yeah.
someone to hold a little tiger cub,
Yeah.
even swim with a tiger cub.
Right.
It's just, I always tell people, if you see any wild animal doing something that's unnatural that they would not be doing if they were in the wild, but they're doing it because they're captive, just don't do it. Don't
Right.
pay to
Don't
play
contribute
with
to
the
that.
tiger cub. Exactly.
The elephants,
It's cruel,
riding the elephants.
not cool.
Right, exactly.
Yes.
And everybody wants to give their children the experience, but there are so many other things that you could, get them involved in or give them experience other than saddling a poor elephant for 9 hours a day at one of these, local fairs or
Right.
gatherings. Will the part of the bill that you're working on, is that going to what's that going to do for the people that are breeding them? Will they not be allowed to breed them any longer? Is that
That's a really good question.
Yeah.
What the bill is going to specify is that the public can no longer handle cubs. there has to be a 15-foot barrier between the public and a tiger cub, for example. So we believe that that will stop the incentive of these breeders to breed cubs if little Johnny, little Jenny can't hold a cub anymore and get a photo.
Try to
or a
remove the
teenager
financial
can't
reward.
Can't get a selfie. Exactly.
Sure.
If they can, these are very lucrative for 12 weeks, and then they become a huge liability.
Right.
It costs Big Cat Rescue $10,000 per year for food and vet care for one large cat, like a lion or a tiger. So all of a sudden they go from being lucrative to very expensive. And that will we believe will stop 99% of the abuse, just stopping them from people to be able to hold them.
Sure. The what's the demand like? I mean, do you have a backlog?
Right now we don't. We used to have to turn away hundreds of cats every year from people, whether it was the private pet they wanted to get rid of or various other circumstances. Now people are getting it. There is a growing awareness that these cats do not make good pets. They shouldn't be in circuses. They shouldn't be, exploited for the cub photos. And we're actually have room right now to handle more cats. So as authorities seize cats from different roadside zoos or they close down on their own, we take in cats. When we take in a cat from a private owner, we do have them sign a legally binding contract. They will never again own another cat. We don't want to just be the dumping ground for someone who has a lion that's older now and sick and needs a lot of vet care, and they're going to turn around and they're going to buy another cub.
A new one, right? Yeah. How many sanctuaries exist like this, like Big Cat? Do you have what you would consider partner or sister sanctuaries, people that you work with in the industry that have the same kind of passion?
Not exactly sisters, but we're accredited by the Global Federation of Animal Sanctuaries.
Okay.
And there are, I'd say, 6 to 10 other sanctuaries in the United States that are also accredited. And then they have, because it's global, there's different accreditations for different animals around the world.
Sure.
And it could be an elephant sanctuary, a wolf sanctuary, a big cat sanctuary, even horse sanctuaries. So we do work together with other GFAS accredited sanctuaries on different rescues when there's a lot of cats. For example, in 2016.
So there is a network.
Yes, there is a network.
Yeah.
In 2016, in Colorado, there was a place called Serenity Springs, and the man had 75 tigers.
Oof.
He owned 75 tigers, and he was breeding more.
Wow.
Another accredited sanctuary.
So he was a breeder or just a habitual collector?
He was a breeder. He was making money. He was breeding them for these cub opportunities that I was telling you about. But then, people get in on over their head. And as he was getting older, so he did agree to sell his land and equipment and donated his animals to Turpentine Creek, which is another great sanctuary out of Arkansas. And then they put out the word, we need help. This guy has 75 tigers and some other smaller cats.
Sure.
Who can take the cats? And we agreed to take in 5 tigers.
That's crazy. Mm-hmm. Crazy. Do you ever get the opportunity to release a cat back into the wild? Is that something that can be done, or is that, not typical, or how to, or is that, I don't even know if it.
That's a good question.
Yeah.
We get that question a lot. As I mentioned earlier, cats like lions, tigers, leopards, servals, caracals, they are not native to the United States, so it's illegal to release them, even if there was wild in the U.S. To release them to the habitat, which there's not. We are licensed in the state of Florida to rehab native wild Florida bobcats.
Okay.
So, for example, right now we are rehabilitating, just basically raising 2 tiny little 6-7-week-old bobcats that were found separately in different parts of Florida. They were both in the middle of the road. And some good Samaritan saw them, scooped them up, thinking they were, house cats, and then realizing they were bobcats. And they, either took them to a vet or a shelter or called the Florida Wildlife Commission. And that's how we get most of them. And we ended up bringing them. They were both close together in age. So we have introduced them, and now they're going to grow up together. And we have an amazing state-of-the-art bobcat rehab program. It's the best in the state. And once they, learn how to hunt, we make sure that they know how to take care of themselves and can survive on their own. Then we will release them into a beautiful wooded, at least 40 acres of natural habitat for them to go into.
That's cool. That's the ultimate success story.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously,
Those
is when
are
you can return them back home.
Those are our very
To
favorite
your point,
days.
they should all be in the wild. Yeah. When the public wants to experience this, and like so many people, and you'd be very wealthy if you had $1 every time you heard that. I've heard of it. What's the best experience? Is this thing Monday through Sunday? Is it what are your business hours? How does one come down and visualize and get to experience Big Cat Rescue?
Right. We have guided tours. So we're not like a zoo where you just walk around on your own and just show up and leave whenever you want.
Right.
We have specific times for tours.
Okay.
So the best way to figure out, the tour you want to take and the time it's available, and you have to make a reservation in advance, is to go to bigcatrescue.org/tickets.
Okay.
And it will describe the tours. Our day tour is our most popular tour. It's an 1.5-hour walking tour, and the guide talks about the cats that you see as you walk around, how they came to the sanctuary, their specific stories, as well as information about the plight of captive cats in America and what's going on with cats in the wild. Most tigers these days, there's only about 4,000 left. About half of them, the wild tigers, are in India. So we'll talk about that. And we have kids tours on Saturdays and Sundays for children that are under age 10.
Okay.
So if you go with your family, you might have 2 adults, a 12-year-old and a 7-year-old. Everybody goes on the kids tour because at least one of your members of your party is
so
under
most of your
age.
tours they have age requirements.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. So the kids tour is the only tour, other than a private tour. You can sign up for a private tour, and then it can be any age. So anybody under 9, either a kids tour on the weekends or a private tour.
How big can a tour be? Like what can
Our
my
tours
group
are
be?
about 20 people each.
20? Okay.
Yes, and then
Mostly corporate events, or do you find families doing it, wanting a private tour, or both?
both. Yes,
both. Okay.
Yes, absolutely. And so we're closed on Thursdays,
Okay.
and during the week we have a regular tour at 3 p.m. So there are not tours all day long every day.
Right.
And I always say, being a sanctuary, a lot of these cats have been through, hell before they got here.
Yeah.
And so they have their natural environments. They do what they want. If they want to hide in the grass and you don't see the cat as you walk by, that's fine.
Right.
The cats come first in every single thing that we do. We never touch our cats.
Right.
We don't buy cats. We don't sell cats. We certainly don't breed cats. That's the number one no-no. And we don't take them off site for events.
Okay.
As the PR director at Big Cat Rescue, I get calls all the time. Oh, we're a car dealership in Clearwater and we're having a 10th anniversary. Can you bring a tiger over to sit in the parking lot all day long for all day on Saturday?
Oh, yeah, that sounds like a great experience.
Great experience for the cat, right?
Yeah, right.
I don't know if you have house cats, but they like to do their own thing. They like to hide. And, there's no opportunity to hide if you're in a cage in a parking lot with the sun beating down, people gawking and taking photos of you all day long.
Yeah, anything could happen at that point.
Right.
So you talk about the kind of the natural habitats, and a lot of these cats aren't from here. Are there such thing as cold weather cats, and can they deal with, we've had animals and they end up with skin problems because of the pollen, and, you have this beautiful piece of property and notice that it's just, you've got amazing trees and landscaping, that makes it very kind of private and probably gives the cats things to kind of shelter under and play.
Right.
But are there cats that don't respond to the Florida heat?
Yes, we have, for example, we have a Canadian lynx, and so he's used to the weather in Canada, which would be a lot cooler.
Yeah.
We also have an extremely rare Amur leopard who would be native to Russia, the Siberian area, which is also very cold.
Yes.
So it's amazing how quickly the cats do adapt to our weather, but for those cats that are used to the colder climate, we have air-conditioned sections for them to go into, and if they want to.
Okay.
And
Do you find them drawn to that? The cats that like the colder, or are they just doing their thing?
they kind of acclimate.
Yeah.
If we've rescued, for example, bobcats are wild in all of North America, and a few years ago it was winter. We rescued some 4 bobcats that came from South Dakota.
Mm-hmm.
So they had their winter coat, and when they got to Florida, it was cool, so it was fine. But the next winter, they didn't get a winter coat because now they've acclimated. Nature is just amazing. So they might come with a winter coat because they were up north, but then they
thin that out a
thin
little
that
bit.
out. Yes.
Yeah, it's amazing. And so, we talked about tours, And I definitely want to plan a tour. Do you have corporate sponsors? Do you take on corporate sponsors for those that are kind of touched by what you're doing? And I'm so glad that you touched on, because it was one of the questions I wanted to ask, is how do you make sure that this thing, stays healthy, financially, and doesn't become a burden? And you touched on that, looking at it from a business segment where this thing can, be self-sufficient. But I'm guessing there are ways that, corporate, or companies can become sponsors or help with the financial burden of some of this?
We do have corporate sponsors. We also have a lot of individual sponsors.
Okay.
And sponsorship can be as low as $25 or it can be $100,000.
Okay, great.
And depending on the level of sponsorship, you can actually, select a cat to sponsor or a species of cat.
Okay.
And have a sign on the enclosure that says this cat is sponsored by, for example. So we have a lot of that. We are a 501c3 nonprofit, so all the money that we take in is through donations and from the revenue of the tours.
Awesome.
The revenue of the tours does pay for the 15 or 16 staff people, which is very low for a sanctuary like ours that has a budget of $3-4 million a year.
That's really lean.
All of the cat care is done by volunteers and interns. So Carol figured out years ago there were enough people who absolutely love big cats that will but take care of them for free.
Yeah, sure.
They will, feed them and clean them and make sure the enclosures are tip-top, raked and that kind of thing.
Absolutely.
Weeded.
It's a ton of work.
And so all of the money that is straight donations, 100% of that goes to the cats and our mission.
That's amazing. Well, I'll tell you, it's just an amazing story, and there's some things I learned today about Big Cat, just that's very touching. Anything I missed, Susan, today that you'd like to talk about? Or?
If people wanted to get more information about the federal bill and how they can take action,
Absolutely.
They can go to bigcatact.com.
Okay.
Or text CATS, CITS, to 52886, and they can actually just enter your address and zip code. And it's not that we're going to start bombarding you with things. It's simply to say, figure out on the app who your two state U.S. senators are and who your House of Representative member is. And then you can make what we call the call of the wild. And your phone will actually ring, and it will connect you to Washington, D.C., to the office of your House of Representative member first. And you can just say, hi, my name is Susan. I live in Florida. I'm in your district, and I would like you to sponsor the Big Cat Public Safety Act. I don't think these cats should be pets or be used as photo ops.
Absolutely. And I think I want to thank you so much, Susan, for coming by today. It's just you guys are amazing, and keep up the good work.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. All right, signing out. Thanks again, listeners. Big Cat Rescue here in Tampa, Florida. For the local folks that haven't had an opportunity, we learned that we could schedule private tours, and just an organization that really deserves the support and attention.
Thanks for listening. And remember, subscribe to Brown on Brand at thumbstopper.fm or wherever fine podcasts can be found.